Good to see you, P.
Yeah, it is good to see you.
Man, it's been yes, sir. A lot's been going on. We got a lot to talk about.
This is the city of Dallas almost melted. The heat wave.
My goodness.
Finally got a reprieve.
I got a puppy.
You did get a puppy.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll let the visionaries in on this, right? So randomly, I just get a text message from you of a dog, and you're like, meet Boston. I was like, what the hell is that?
Yeah.
Like knowing you have a little person in the house, and he was like, I got a dog. And I was like, since when? He was like, today.
Yeah.
And I remember you saying you wanted a Doberman, and I was like, oh, he's got a little kid. Like, that's not happening for a long time. Then,
shit.
Yeah, exactly. And then randomly just a
She
dog
she don't pay no bills.
This is true. This is true. So we're back at it, right?
Yeah.
This is the power of social media, the power of networking, the power of being in the pool with the right people, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you know me, I'm in the real estate business on the development side of things. And I went to a networking event, I don't know, April, May-ish probably.
Okay.
And, you know, the regular, hey, my name's Ryan, or what do you do, so and so. So I meet this guy, and he's like, oh, my name's Mike, after being introduced to him by a third party, and we'll talk about that person here in just a little bit.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we started talking about what we do, and we looked at the clock, and somehow the word cigars came up.
Trouble.
Right. And I said, well, it's only like 8 o'clock. I said, there's a place right down the way we can go smoke. He's like, let's go. And he and
this guy.
Yeah, he and I've been cool ever since then.
There it is.
So
the power of the leaf.
Man,
we've had a lot of connections because of the leaf. Obviously, we're not smoking today, but before we go any further,
yes, sir,
I do want to give a massive shout out to Tiara PR Network for housing this event tonight and allowing us to come in and do some work. So
yeah, the address is well, first of all, the official address, right? Tiara Public Relations Network, 2611 West Grove Drive, Suite 107 in beautiful Carrollton, Texas, zip code 75006. We also need to say thank you to one Kylie Miller of Boss Babe Productions, Boss Babe Networking, Boss Babe Events, all things Boss Babe related.
Yeah.
She is responsible for us being here tonight.
And what's really cool, we got a live audience tonight.
Yeah, first time in a long time we had a live audience. So this ought to be really, really fun.
So real quick, audience, go ahead and give yourself a big round of applause. Shout out to the two beautiful young ladies that have helped put this thing together, and we are certainly excited. So without further ado, P.
Oh, by all means, sir.
Welcome back to the Vision Lab podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Cuffey, alongside my co-host, Mr. Ryan Mosley. The Vision Lab is the official growth mindset podcast for all visionaries worldwide, and we're showing mad love to the cigar community. It's here in the lab where we uncover people's visions and dreams and how those dreams actually come into reality. Folks, it's all about tapping into and becoming the absolute best versions of ourselves through self-discovery, self-examination, and self-actualization. You kind of mentioned a little bit already, but who we got on the show today, Mo?
Cuff, today's guest is a native of Chicago, Illinois. He has been in the real estate business for more than 30 plus years now?
Yeah.
More than 30 years. Please welcome Mike Morawski to the Vision Lab podcast.
What up, what up, what up? How are we doing this afternoon, this evening, and good morning, Mike? How are you, sir?
I'm good. I'm good. Finally glad to get to meet you.
Yeah.
I've watched
I'm not a
you.
Ghost.
No, I know, but I've watched you. I've heard you guys. I love you guys, and it's great to be here.
Well, I'm tremendously excited. Shout out to you too, Mo, for helping to put this together.
And I have to say, that story about us meeting, I was thinking about that night. I was thinking about us hanging out, smoking cigars.
Yeah.
I was like, damn, that was a good time.
Well, so here's the cool part about podcasting too, right? And then, you know, again, being in the pool with the right people. So, you know, we're exchanging real estate ideas and things like that. And then when we get to the cigar lounge, we're smoking. He was like, "Oh, I got a podcast too." And I said,
"Really?"
Yeah. I remember I was on like 6 weeks ago, probably.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay, yeah.
And so he's like, "Well, you know, one podcast or no, we should just do a trade."
There it is.
You can be on my show anytime. And we set it up, and it was great. People loved it. I still get DMs about it. And then I was like, "Well, when you come to Dallas, you make sure you let me know so you can be on our show." And he was like, "Book it. Let's do it."
It goes down in the DMs.
Come on now.
Cuff, you need a turn.
Oh, I'm ready. You know,
that's a whole nother ball of wax.
It's a whole other podcast.
I'm ready. I'm always ready.
So, also we met at a networking event, and you know we're gonna get into Mike's experience in the real estate world and things like that, right? But he's got this very interesting story in regards to some of the ups and downs that he's experienced just to get to this part of his career. And you know, people see us as, you know, they see the cigar thing, but then they hear entrepreneurism. But then we get into, like, you know, what really makes people tick, and they have this fork in the road moment. Right? So a lightning bolt, right? Mm-hmm. A lightning rod moment, a point of inflection, if you will. And so as I got to know him, I was like, Mike, you kind of got to talk about that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll kind of open the floor and let you kind of really like expound on that because I want to ruin it for the audience and listeners.
So first thing I always say is buckle up, right?
Well, I know that.
Especially if you don't know. So been in real estate 30 years. Started out as a residential sales agent. I had come from a construction background at a general contracting business. And, you know, like any entrepreneur, you do everything, right? I was writing contracts. I was marketing. I was doing sales. I was staying up late at night, doing bookkeeping, hiring people, firing people, and still banging nails in the field.
Wow.
And man, does it get any better than that?
Right.
The dream.
And so I remember vividly waking up in bed one morning, sitting right up going, I'm done. I'm over it. And I had somebody knocking on my door to buy the company. So my wife at the time, her and I, we sold the company, and I took a year off. But hey, you guys know, like any entrepreneur, you never take time off. At least your mind is still spinning and going, right?
Absolutely.
So I took time off. We went and bought a couple of 2-flats. So, you know, I sold my company, bought a couple 2-flats, and thought that I'd rehab them. So we were house hacking long before it was sexy.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, now everybody house hacks, right? They buy a house, they buy an apartment building, they live in one unit, they fix up the other ones, they move, you know, and today everybody does it. That's how you get into real estate investing, right? That's
right.
the soft landing into it, 1 foot in. And so along the way, I met a real estate agent. And I'd heard Jim Rohn say years ago, success leaves clues.
Doesn't it, though?
Always stuck with me. And so I meet this real estate agent who's extremely successful. And I go to him and I say, hey, Todd, I think I want to be in the real estate business. And he goes, I think you'd be really good at it. And so I went and got licensed, went back to him, said, hey, could I shadow you and your team? And he said, no. I was a little devastated. He goes, I'm going to do better for you. I'm going to make you a cassette tape. So now I'm dating myself, right? I don't think today you could find anything to make a cassette tape on.
There are people who don't even know what those are.
Right. It's a little square thing you used to put in your radio. And
What's a radio?
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Bill Gates. Sorry. You might want to edit that, right?
No, you're good.
So he made me this cassette tape, and I equate it to these podcasts, right? You get a good guest on, talks about a good story, talks about some great lessons. You're going to want to rewind it, listen to it, go over it and over it. And that's what I did with this tape. I listened to these fundamentals, and I went in the real estate business, and my first 9 months, I sold 78 houses. Wow. I was RE/MAX Rookie of the Year that year. I went on to build a team selling 125 homes a year and did that consecutively for about 12 years. And 2005 rolled around, and I've kind of always had this vision about things and things going on, and I said, man, this market is going to change. Things started to get soft. I was wondering, what was going to happen. I had about 7 people working for me at the time, and I didn't want to lay anybody off. I didn't want to,
You want to be that guy.
Right. So I'd always wanted to be in the apartment business. So what I realized, I did some work when I was in the construction business for a couple of big syndicators in Chicago. And syndicators, for anybody that doesn't know, is just where you raise private capital, you marry it with a great real estate deal, you put the two together, you stay in the middle. It's a group of people that come together to fund and operate a piece of real estate, whether it's a duplex or a 500-unit apartment complex. That's what I knew when I went in the business. And I didn't think that the transition from residential to multifamily would be tough.
It's a different world.
It's a different world, man.
From a guy on the residential side, it's a different world. First
time somebody said cap rate and yield, I went, what? So I had a lot to learn. 2005, I bought my first apartment deal. It was an 11-unit apartment deal. And Ryan, I was so excited that the owner would sell it to me, right? I had done all kinds of residential. I had a portfolio of 200 single-family homes. And I buy this apartment house, and all of a sudden I realize, man, I got to go raise capital. How am I going to pay for this? So I did something that was really unique. I put a little ad in the classified section of the newspaper for $45. I said, real estate investors wanted. and my phone rang off the hook for like the next 6 days. I wound up raising $700,000 from that one little ad, and closed that deal, did another 64 unit. Like I said, when I made that transition from residential into multifamily, I didn't know anything, but I learned a lot along the way. And I just asked questions, right? Success leaves clues. I went to successful people. I talked to brokers. I talked to my attorney, and I learned how to build a buying strategy, how to develop due diligence strategies, look at KPIs, all the fundamentals and metrics that go along with it. Want me to keep going?
No, by all means.
Well, actually, let me hop in real quick. Like, I've got a question.
Right?
There's a lot to unpack, and I think that story resonates with so many people, right? And this, what I really want to get into is kind of like your mentality that you had over, once you sold the portfolio and then you got into syndication. Like, what was the mentality that you have? Obviously, Jim Rohn talking about success leaving clues. That's fantastic. But what does that mean on an actual, like, personal level?
Yeah. When I jump into something, I'm committed. I'm focused, and it's hard to pull me away. I'm an overachiever. I mean, I went into business. I sold 78 houses my first.
It's crazy.
Because I was focused on accomplishing that, and it got to be fun, right? So what I do, I'm so passionate about it, and I love it, and it's in my blood, it's in my DNA, and it's what I do. It's like networking and meeting people and talking to people and building relationships. That's what drives business today. So
for those that are watching for the first time, and by the way, if you like the content that you've heard this far, please go ahead and like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. But what advice would you give someone that's literally just starting into it, whether they're, late teens, early 20s, 30s, or maybe this is a second career for them?
Get a mentor, get a coach. I wish I would have went into coaching sooner. I've been personally coached in my life for 25 years. When I got into coaching, nobody did it. It was unheard of. I followed a national real estate trainer, and he started this coaching program, and I jumped in. And I was terrified. I wrote a check at the back of the room at this seminar for $1,000. And I was like, holy crap. I think I was more afraid about figuring out how to tell my wife I did that than figuring out how to pay for it, right? So, and I never looked back. Every month, like clockwork. And, the coaching, the mentoring, the accountability helps you grow, helps you be more successful. And none of us grow professionally unless we grow personally. So, you have to build into yourself, educate yourself, learn the things you need to learn. But that's one thing, I always say, we were just at an event this weekend, and I always tell people, I say, hey, when you learn something, don't ever leave the sight of learning something without saying, I'm going to do it. And draw a line in the sand and take that next step.
Action.
Right.
And that's a great segue into kind of my next question. Obviously, you're very successful, been doing this for 30 plus years. What's the one thing, if you could isolate, right? What's the one thing that holds people back from really recognizing their potential or success?
Yeah, I think it's fear. I think people are held back by fear. I think people get held back because they have history in their life. They might, and I tell my story, and we'll get into more of that, but I tell my story because I don't want people to be held back. I think that people get trapped in past addictions, abuse, and they get stuck. And so fear can be gripping, right?
So really what I'm hearing you say is it's never too late to start.
It's never too late.
And you can always overcome your fear. What's the saying that I'd say all the time in regards to fear?
What we want is on the other side of fear.
Everything that we want is on the other side of fear. So I'm glad that you touched on that. I know you've got because everything that we talked about this far is like, peaches and roses, and it's, I started this. I sold 7-8 houses my first year. My first syndication deal went through and it was great, but everything isn't just peaches and cream, so to speak.
Right. So 2005, I do my first syndication deal. And over the next 30 months, I build a $100 million company. I raise $18 million. I buy 4,000 apartments in 5 markets. We had a huge portfolio down here in the Dallas-Fort Worth market. We built a property management company managing 7,500 units. And 2008 came around. It was like hitting a brick wall on a freight train, 200 miles an hour, started to derail. And I made 5 mistakes along the way. So the first one was I grew way too fast. So I always tell people, I say, don't grow too fast. This is a marathon, not a sprint. Take your time. You'll get there. You don't have to achieve way too much. I was over leveraged. So I owned $60 million worth of real estate at 85% loan to value. And I always say, I don't know who was worse, me for taking the money or the banks for giving it to me at the time. But banks were throwing money at people back then.
Were you dealing with Countrywide?
Did I? What was the other one? Countrywide.
It was before Wells Fargo.
I can't think of it.
Argent?
No, there was another one. I'll think of it.
Could have been Wachovia.
Yeah, I had some Wachovia stuff.
Yeah.
Wachovia got bought, but
I know definitely Countrywide because I was there.
Yeah.
Full spectrum.
So you start to see things derail, and what happens?
Yeah, so I start to see things coming off the rails, and I thought this is a recession. I'd been through a couple of downturns. I thought, this is going to last 17 or 18 months. We'll see a 10 or 12% correction in the marketplace, and then everything will bounce back. So it'll go back to normal. Well, it didn't. We all know that 2008 lasted 7 or 8 years. There was a 47% correction in the markets. So when you take real estate that you're at 92% occupied and you drop all of a sudden to 67% occupied, and you have a 47% correction in your NOI, your net operating income, and we all know multifamily apartments are built on net operating income, that's a storm that you go, holy fuck, how do I weather this? I can say that, right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
I'll tell you, don't answer anybody. Say what you want to.
Say it again if you want to.
Yeah. Holy fuck, how do you weather this? I'm glad these guys didn't put me in between them. At least we all wore black shirts, though, huh?
Good.
Yeah.
So I think, I had 12 deals. I had 38 different companies. I had 12 deals. I should have just let go to foreclosure. But, I'm the firstborn. I'm the hero. I don't want anybody to get hurt. I think, you know what? I'm going to try and save this thing. So I go to my accountant and my attorney, and I come up with a plan. I say, I'm going to start to move money from my profitable companies to my non-profitable companies. And they say, you can do that. It's legal. Just leave a paper trail. And they were of the same impression. This is a recession. It's going to be short-lived. The markets are going to bounce back. When the markets bounce back, put the money back, it'll all be good. And I think I can do that. When it's all over, I tell people, and then I'm a hero. Well, this went on and on and on, and it was a complete circle of moving money. And because I didn't tell my investors, I wound up being charged on wire fraud and mail fraud charges. Ultimately got sentenced to 10 years in federal prison. So in 2013, I went to federal prison for 7.5 years, during which time I wondered if it'd be easier just to hang myself, And I always tell people, I say, hey, I never flew private. I didn't have a boat. I didn't have a big house. I didn't drive a fancy car. I was a neighborhood baseball coach. I was home every night for dinner. And I got ripped from that to live in a 12 by 12 room with 3 men I didn't know, nor did I like, wondering what the fuck happened in my life.
So let's pause for a quick second.
Yeah.
The gavel goes down in the courtroom. You now realize wife, children, etc. You're not going to see them for a while. Please walk us through that moment when you're walking, to the back to actually be docked.
Take them away. Like, what point you're like, oh my gosh, this is really happening.
So, I've been on 250 of these, and not a lot of people ask that question. So I'll never forget that day in court. I'd got indicted in 2011, and it was 2013 before I got sentenced. So I had 2 years.
Okay.
I'm standing in court that day at a sentencing hearing, and I hear the judge say 120 months, and I go, shit, that's 10 fucking years.
You did a quick division in your head.
And the room goes quiet, and all I hear is my wife and 2 of my daughters go, and it was like they sucked the air out of the room.
Yeah.
And it was like a surreal moment.
Yeah.
Now you have to remember, this is 7:30 at night on a Friday night in the Federal Dirksen Court building in Chicago, and the air conditioning went off at 5:30. So it's summer, and it's hot, and it was like, it's a feeling and a time I'll never forget. You know, we all have those defining moments in our life. We have those things that happen to us in our life, and that's a time that I just will never forget.
So let's. I hate to say it this way, but kind of double down on that same type of question. Now you've actually walked in. You've been processed, and you're going through that whole processing phase or situation.
Well,
what was that like?
Yeah, so when I got sentenced, I had 75 days before I had to report. So I self-surrendered after that. So they let me go and finish some things that I need to take care of and get more of my affairs in order. And I got to take a couple of my kids to camp that summer and went on a last vacation.
The wheels that were turning in your head during that summer.
So I go to prison, though. I turned myself in on July 13th. So I got sentenced April 11th. July 13th, I turned myself in to Duluth, Minnesota federal prison camp. And everybody goes, oh, you were in a camp. Shit, man, I was gone. I was behind a wall. You know, you got picked out of society. It doesn't matter if you're in a maximum security or you're in a camp. The same shit goes on. You know, it's political and it's
violent.
It's violent. It's, you know, the only thing that's not happening is they're not killing each other.
And I'm guessing, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, like you didn't come from that walk of life. That wasn't like a picture that you had seen at least frequently prior to.
No.
So what was that like?
So funny story. I have to tell this story. So I'm supposed to be there by 12 o'clock, and it's a Monday. So I get to the airport. I get on a plane. We take off from O'Hare. We get about 30 minutes into the flight, and the captain comes on and says, "Hey, flight attendants, prepare the cabin for an emergency landing."
Oh, wow.
And the first thought that goes through my mind is, oh, way to end this story. He goes down in a fiery crash, right? So we get back to O'Hare. I get on the phone. I call the prison. I said, the guy at the prison says, hold on. And I know he called to check to make sure I was telling the truth. He goes, just try to be here by midnight. So I got to go home, spend that last day with my family. Went back to the airport that night, got on a flight, got to Duluth, got in a cab, go to the airport, check in, and, you know, it's ugly. I mean, they take you in, they take all your clothes, they take everything you have, they throw some cardboard at you to put on, pants and a shirt, and then they stick you in an observation room because it's late at night. They're not going to take you out on the compound and put you in a room, and they and you sit there till morning, till they process you, and then they come in and they process you, and you wind up going out to your room. And
so we've had a gentleman on this show who is currently serving a 75-year sentence for a murder charge that most people associated with the case tell you he didn't commit. And one of the things that he told us when he was on the show, like, it's just that moment of like disbelief.
Yeah.
I mean, he told us on the show, he's like, look, you know, I was doing other things in the street, but he's like, I never killed anybody. I'm wondering for you, you know, you wake up the following morning as guys get ready to start their day, and like you said, you're in a camp with, you know, people you like, I don't even like this person, let alone having to spend my day with them. What's the what's the internal mechanism as you get adjusted to this new form of life to where you say, okay, Mike, I'm going to figure out a way to make the best of this time versus this time doing me?
So the first thing I want to say is I cried for 18 months. Prison's not a place you want to cry. And I met a guy that knew where I was, and he would come and pull me out of the balcony in the chapel where I'd be in a fetal position for days at a time. I thought my life was over. I was in prison about 3 weeks, and my wife divorced me, and it absolutely wrecked me. Now remember this, guys, that my partner was like my best friend. We were friends for 25 years.
Oh, please don't say what I think you're going to say.
Yeah, I'm going to go there.
Golly.
And I usually don't, but I want to say that if I would have killed him when I wanted to, I'd have been home a lot sooner. So,
The irony.
yeah, and don't cut that out. So I'm there like 3 weeks. My wife divorces me, and I'm like, man, my life's over. I don't know how I'm going to get through today, much less 10 years of this. So 6 weeks in, and I'm walking around every day like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? You know, I have an attorney that's not really good. We're trying to do an appeal. I should have changed attorneys. It's a long story. But I walk in the gym one day, and I always tell people, I say, hey, I was just window shopping. I wasn't looking to lift a weight. I wasn't looking to work out. I was just walked in to see what was going on. And I'd gone from running marathons to being 35 pounds overweight. Absolutely hated myself. Thought, you know what? It'd just be easier to end this. You know, had a pretty good life insurance policy. You know, wife and kids would have been fine. This guy walks up to me. And, you know, I said a minute ago, we all have these defining moments in our life. And this was one. This kid walks up to me, and he says, hey, don't let these people beat you. All they want to do is take from you everything you've ever known. They can take your business. They can take your money. They can destroy your family. But what they can't take is who you are and what you're made of.
Yes, sir.
He said, come to my class every day, start working out. You'll start losing weight. You'll start feeling better. And I don't know what it was, but it was like somebody flipped a switch. And I said, okay. And I started going to this guy's class. I started working out. I started to feel better. I started losing weight. I wound up writing 2 books. One book on multifamily investing, one book on property management. I wrote an ethics course. I taught real estate investing and property management and ethics in prison for 6 years. How ironic, a federal inmate teaching ethics, right?
So you were like Johnny Depp in Blow when he decided to like start teaching classes in there. Right?
Love that movie. I wound up going to college. I got a bachelor's degree in theology. I was on an outreach program. I went into the community. I told my story to small business owners and local college students. I met a professor from the University of Minnesota. He and I co-authored a paper together that got published in the Business Journal of Ethics and gets taught today at the collegiate level for forensic accounting and sales and marketing classes.
Wow.
I came home the week they closed the world down for the pandemic. So I went from that prison into your prison. And
You got home and it was still nobody moved.
right. I had a buddy who was supposed to meet me in Minnesota, and I get to Minnesota. I buy a cell phone. I call him. He says, I'm not coming. I said, you're not coming? He goes, no, man. Nobody's flying. Nobody's doing anything. I was like, damn, what happened to the world, you know? So I come home, and I think I'm going to go into coaching and training business. You know, I wrote these books. I wrote a couple home study courses. I wrote all this material. I built a business plan, and I did. I went into coaching and training business. So one thing I knew I was going to need to do was learn how to underwrite again. And underwriting is just a fancy word for saying, hey, we're going to look at the ghosts of the past, ghosts of the present, ghosts of the future on the financials. We're going to analyze properties and see if they make sense. So I started underwriting, and I resurrected a tool that we had built years ago, and it's an institutional grade underwriting tool. And I found a deal, right? I find a deal in Florida, and I go to one of my coaching clients, and I said, hey, I think we should do this. And we got about a week down the road, and I said, there's no way you and I are going to be able to do this together. I said, we're both way too busy, and there's too many moving parts. I have another coaching client that I think would be a great partner for us to handle all of the stuff, legal documents, insurance, funding, investor portals, all the moving parts, right? So the three of us do a deal. We buy a 40 unit in Tampa, Florida. And along the way, my securities attorney says, hey, I think I can get you approved by the SEC to go back and do this.
You'd be an accredited investor again.
No, to raise capital.
Well, does the Dodd-Frank Act not apply here?
Yeah, not really.
Okay.
So my securities attorney, we have this conversation. I said, yeah, you could try, I guess. Never talk about it again for 3 months. 3 months later, she shows up on a call and says, look what I have, and she's got written approval from the SEC that says I can be an issuer of securities, a sponsor of deals, and go back and raise capital again. And so it's like life fully circles.
It's full circle when she pops up with this paperwork with government seals on it, and
Right.
you're used to seeing government seals in a different light.
Right.
What's the feeling you get, right? Because at this point, like you said, you leave one prison, you show up to another, no one can move around the world. Obviously, given what you just went through, you told your partner, like, I'm not sure this is even going to get through. And she shows up with a new lease on life. Like, how did you feel?
Yeah, I felt elated. I really was excited. I was happy. I knew God had my back.
Yes, sir.
And, the only way, people say, how'd you get through that time? The only way I got through was with Jesus. And it was, when she gave me that paper and was funny because they said, hey, you only have to disclose till April. This was like in March of 21. And she said, you only have to disclose till April. And I'm like, I'm always going to disclose. Mm-hmm. So I tell my story, right? I do that because I think it provides hope and inspiration for people. I want people to understand that you can't let your past define your future, right? You take the necessary steps, you take the action. And trust me, it's not easy today, right? But if it was easy, everybody'd do it.
So I'm going to stop you right there because he and I are both on our own personal entrepreneurial journeys. And when you say that, people hear it, but they don't understand it, right? Entrepreneurship or, working for yourself, like it's cool to say you're an entrepreneur. And I tell people all the time, like, especially when you're trying to really get something started from scratch, from ground up. I mean, in your case, like you literally had to start with nothing all over again.
Yeah.
It's bloody in the sense of like, it's not cute. It's not sexy. Right. It's not what people will lead you to believe it is on Instagram where, they're on planes and you're going to have to put your hands in the dirt. Can you explain the mentality once you got that new lease on life from the Security and Exchange Commission? Can you explain what your mentality was when you were like, you know what, I can do this all over again? Because they're saying if you build it once, you can build it again. But you were a true testament to that.
So, I was going to do it anyhow, right? But now I can just, now they say I can do it.
By any means necessary. I love
it. Remember, I learned from the mistakes I made and the things that happened, right? I know what to watch out for. I didn't, here's a funny story. I didn't think I'd ever raise capital again. And I was telling my story on a lunchtime meetup one time, and this was probably early 2022. And there was about 150 people on this podcast. And
wow.
Actually 2020, I'm sorry.
Okay.
So yeah, it was in 2020. And this guy said, hey, Morawski, are you raising money? And I said, no. He goes, why not? He goes, why would I want to invest with anybody other than somebody like you who's already made the mistakes? You know what to look out for. You know what to watch out for. And, you know, it was like, I got it then at that point. And I understood that what I had been through would help other people.
Value.
And there's value in it, right? Thank you.
I mean, it's a hell of a story. And we've heard people that have, risen to the top, been knocked down. You use the word a lot of times, internal mechanism.
Yeah,
right?
There's got to be some type of inner workings.
But it's something that can't be taught, right?
No, I think you're born with it.
Yeah. So kind of talk about that a little bit. Like you even just said, I was going to do it regardless. Yeah. Like I don't care what they said, I was going to get done. Like that.
Well, I don't know anything else. I mean, I've been self-employed since I was 23 years old. I'm unemployable, right? I can't go get a job, right? Because if I come to work for you, I can do it different. I can do it better than you. Is my whether I can or not, that's my mentality, right? I mean, when I first went into business for myself, I worked for a guy, and he used to come in, and I'd look at him, and I'd go, oh, man, I can do this much better than you. And I did. I left and started my own company, right? And I never looked back.
Well, and that's really what I wanted to get to is how do we take that mentality for someone that's trying to transition from the W-2 into the solopreneur, entrepreneur realm? Like you can read books, you can listen to podcasts, you can go to networking seminars, etc. But like you got to have it in you. So how can you draw that out of that person that's really, really determined to make that shift?
Yeah, you have to want it, right? I could probably point out 6 people in this room tonight that want it, right? Whatever they're doing in their life, it's a passion, it's a desire. It has to be, I think it gets ingrained in you. My background, I learned work ethic from my dad. And, I have a work ethic. I'll outwork anybody, And I don't necessarily mean I'll work 2 more hours than you. I'll just work harder than you.
It's fun to have him really open up about all this because he and I have talked obviously since we met or whatnot. Like we see things the same way, and now we find out we're in the same field, and it's like, okay, let's not only make sure we do podcasts together, but let's figure out ways to be involved and do business together and things like that. As we kind of shift gears, right? You're very obviously accomplished in the syndication space, and you're real estate to the highest power. Given the current state that we are in from a market standpoint, what are just some of your observations in regards to what's happening now, and what do you see for coming in the next quarter, the next 6 months, the next year? Because the big thing now is interest rates, right? People are
What's the magic ball tell us?
Yeah, what's the magic 8 ball say?
Man, we could make millions, right? So a couple things. I heard somebody before we started the show tonight say interest rates are going to go up. And the first thought that came to mind is, yeah, they're going to go up, but they're going to go back down. Interest rates go up, they go down. Markets are cyclical. I've made money in good markets. I've made money in bad markets. I've made money when there's a Democrat in office. I've made money when there's a Republican in office. It doesn't matter. What matters is what you do, how you look at deals, how you evaluate things, and what you can find.
Can I ask you a quick question on that point? Do you not believe that people get so lost in the weeds on, hey, the Fed moved the rate or the rates have gone at one point, but it doesn't matter. If you want it bad enough, you'll figure out a way to get it done.
I love you to get lost in the weeds. Go ahead. Go get lost in the weeds.
Because you're going to go out and find the deal.
I was telling somebody today that there are people that have left the business to go do, I know, I was with a good friend of mine, and I said, we were talking about a new car wash being built. And he goes, man, there's so many car washes. I said, you know why? Because people have left the multi-family space. They're going and building car washes.
Yes,
they went in the self-storage space. They're in the industrial space. You know what? I love that shit because, there's more room now for me. It was crowded a year ago. Yeah. And now it's like you can see people have kind of gone away from the business. And here's what's going to happen. They're going to go, oh shit, the multifamily business came back, and they're going to turn around and come back to the business, and they're going to be too late because you have to be consistent. So I'm doing a deal right now, and I can talk about it. It's a 506C. So I'm doing a deal right now in Tulsa, 277 unit, 5 property portfolio. We had underwritten $1 billion in transactions, 90 deals between June and January of last year, and we didn't find anything that penciled. And it almost gets discouraging. But you know what? Somebody called us with a deal in Tulsa, number 91. And my underwriter called me and said, hey, there's an off-market deal in Tulsa, 5 properties. I go, Tulsa? What's in Tulsa? He goes, you probably should look at this market. And, I have an underwriter. He's 21 years old, young guy, really sharp, finance major at TCU. And, I've taught him the skills he needs to do this business. And we underwrote this deal. We looked at the market. The more I looked at the market, the more the market made sense. And I'm a market-driven investor. So you could bring me a great deal in Chicago and I wouldn't look at it. But you could bring me a moderate deal in Biloxi, Mississippi, and I'd probably look at it, right? Because I know what's going on in that market. But this Tulsa market, I could check the boxes. So we started walking down the road to buy this deal. And I believe that Tulsa is right where Indianapolis was a decade ago. So it's right on the verge of turning and being a very powerful market. It's a tech center. It's got distribution. Mm-hmm. It's got manufacturing. They're building an amusement park outside of town, $2.5 billion. It's going to rival Disney. So that whole region is just exploding.
City's pro-growth.
Right. So you got population growth, job growth. So all the fundamentals are there to take a bad deal that's poorly operated. And every time I go there, I say, God, if this guy would just cut the grass, it'd be so much nicer, So, so those are the things. So to answer your question, long runway to get to your question. I've been saying for 16 months this is going to be a soft landing. I listen to all these experts out there that say it's not going to be. Well, there's a fundamental differences between what's going on in the market today versus what was going on in the market in 2008. You got more equity in the markets. You have lower interest rates. You don't have the foreclosures happening. You don't have the bad paper on Wall Street. You don't have banks selling C and D paper, right? Mm-hmm. So I was at an event this weekend, and John Chang, who's chief economist at Marcus Millichap, one of the big brokerage firms, said that we're coming out of this. And I sat back in my chair and I went, shit, I've been saying that for 16 months. He said, look, they think 2 quarters from now that we'll see the turnaround. And you got to think, there's an election year coming up. And so, again, cycles, right? What happens before an election year? What happens during and right after an election year?
Yeah.
Take a look at where we're at. Take a look at history. And the data doesn't lie. So if you've watched or you watch what's gone on, you can see where we're at.
Success leaves clues.
Yeah, history is not always indicative of the future, but it definitely could lead to some pathway.
Yeah.
So I heard Sam Zell. You know who Sam Zell is? He built a company called Equity Office, Equity Residential, one of the largest REITs in the world. He's from Chicago. He just recently passed away. Somebody that I always kind of followed, right? He was one of the reasons I went into the apartment business was because watching him. He started out in the mobile home business. I heard him on a podcast just like 2 months before he passed away. and he said, I don't understand why they're screwing around. Why don't they just raise interest rates 3%, get it over with, stop this quarter thing, hit the brakes on the economy, let it all stop, and it's got to start over again.
So his mindset is rip the Band-Aid off.
Right. It's, so, I think everybody's got an opinion. There's a lot of opinions out there. This is just mine. I've seen it before. I don't think we're going to go into a depression. Yeah, I don't think you've got too many fundamentals right now that are inconsistent with recession, depression. You've got employment that's higher than it's ever been.
Yeah, low unemployment rate.
Right, and you've got people that aren't employed traditionally but make more money than ever in history. Look at what social media, what tech has done.
That's exactly what I was thinking earlier.
There's more money in circulation today than there's been. Do you know that there's, I think the number's like $7 trillion that's invested in private equity in this country.
This is the part that I love about real estate. I love it and I hate it, right? Because like you said, how do you evaluate a deal? What's your opinion on the economy? It's very interesting to me, especially in the space that I work in. I can put the same deal in front of 5 different people. I'm gonna get five different results or 5 different
answers. Right? Yeah,
and it's like, and then one of them's ultimately right. One of them takes advantage of it, and then they make their money, and then lo and behold, 3, 4, 5 months later, hey Ryan, you know what? We should have listened to you. And it's like, well, how did I put out this pancake on the table? Why were you trying to tell me it was a waffle? Like, it's clearly a pancake. Yeah. And it's just very interesting to me to watch the back and forth and to see like people's opinions or whatnot. It's the underlying
time
thing.
will tell.
Oh, it always does.
Yeah.
It always does.
I think there was a young lady that had a question. Did you? Well, give us one.
We'll take one.
Okay. Any other questions?
So who's your mentor right now?
Who's my mentor? Yeah. I have a very close friend who is with a company in Irvine, California that is they own and operate 100,000 multifamily units. They monitor 1,100 submarkets around the country, and his track record kind of speaks for itself. But if I had to pick a mentor, that would be my mentor. I have 5 or 6 people in the industry that are extremely good at what they do that I hang around with.
I want to tap into that real quick before we land the plane, because we always hear about, get a mentor. I think it's important, right? What are some of the questions that you're asking your mentor? And I understand that it's based off of where you are in your career, but what are some just, core tenet type questions that you should be asking your mentor as you evaluate who should be my mentor?
Yeah. So, well, you asked 2 questions.
I did.
Yeah,
I did.
2 questions.
So what should I ask him?
Trip me up?
No, you're sharp. You're sharp as a tack. What should I be asking, right? And then what type of quote unquote interview questions should I ask to make sure that this is the right fit for me?
I think you should be asking for what stage you're at. So if you're brand new in the business, ask how to, right? If you have more experience in the business, ask how to get here. So how do I get to the next stage? If you have more experience in the business, you might want to be asking what's going to happen. What's your opinion? What do you think? Mm-hmm. And like the conversation is kind of dictated. Don't just take one opinion. Take 4 or 5 opinions. Yeah. And I think ultimately you have your opinion. I have my opinion. You kind of manifest your own opinion, right?
That's good. That's good.
What was the other question you asked me?
Interview. Like, how do I figure out who the best mentor is for me?
Yeah, I think first of all, you do a lot of networking. You meet a lot of people. You have a lot of conversations. You figure out who you're comfortable with, who you align with, right? You figure out what value you can bring to them, and then what value you'll get, right? See, I think the reason that I have always been such a high achiever is I absorb myself in the process. I become a sponge. So, you mentioned reading books earlier. I've read 1,500 books over 30 years, right? And business books, self-help books, personal development books, biographies, and you just, I didn't go to college till I went to prison, right?
So say you had a 10-year run on us, though.
And so that's how you've got to learn. Again, none of us grow professionally till we grow personally.
I love that. I absolutely love that statement. I'm going to steal that.
So
Cheers.
We have reached the part of the show we call landing the plane. We do this with every single person we've had on the show. Before I do that, thank you for making the trip. Thank you for giving us some more of your time.
Yes, sir.
For having me.
And
Yes, sir.
for our visionaries and people in the audience and those watching and listening, we would be amiss if we didn't let you tell everybody your social media handles, how they can get a hold of you, how they can follow you, all of the above.
Sure. So thank you for that.
Of
and
course.
thanks for having me. I appreciate you guys, and this has been a lot of fun. And I told some stories tonight that I generally don't tell. You guys asked a couple questions that made me think about a couple of things, And I always tell people, hey, you can ask me anything you want. Just don't ask me what I ate on Tuesday or Thursday in prison. Social media, I'm on everywhere that you hang out, you could find me. So Instagram, TikTok, Twitter.
Are you doing TikTok dances?
I am. No dances. No dances. Should we do a dance?
I think you should.
Maybe so.
You go viral.
Yeah, might go viral. We should do a dance.
Whoa.
Subscribe to my YouTube channel. I have a ton of content on my YouTube channel. I'm of the opinion, let's just give it away, because I want people to learn. Because not everybody's going to do it anyhow. And my LinkedIn, I'm on LinkedIn. And then you could go to, I have a Facebook group, Multifamily Unplugged. And we are always putting stuff in there.
Love it.
Can I tell people how to get my book?
Yeah, absolutely.
Doors
So
open.
go to my website. My second book just came out, Winning Strategies for Property Management. My first book was Exit Plan, Your Complete Guide to Multifamily Investing and Why You Need an Exit Plan Before You Buy. And the reason I wrote that is, like I said, I was just at a conference this weekend, but I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on education over the years. So I've gone to these training events, great trainers, great speakers. Everybody teaches you how to find a deal, buy it, operate it. Nobody teaches you how to get out. And I always wanted people to learn how to maximize their profit.
Yeah.
So I tell a couple stories in that book about how we did that, some creative strategies in that too.
We got to get him hooked up with Dr. Jake because that's
We
all he
do.
talks about. Is
We
exit.
do.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
for sure.
We'll introduce you to him.
Yeah, and you can email me. I love to network. So email me at mike@mycoreintentions.com or mike@mikemorawski.com.
Shout out to your assistant, Rain. Rain does a
Love Rain.
Rain does a good job.
She is my assistant. She's been with me well over a year now. And you get those people in your life and you go, man, I don't know that I could exist right now without you,
Yeah.
And
So-
she's got my back.
So that said, as we land.
What's the name of your YouTube channel? You never said it.
It's Mike Morawski. Yeah.
Shout out to Adam.
Thanks, Adam.
Hey, Adam just celebrated a wedding anniversary.
Huh?
Adam just celebrated a wedding anniversary.
Oh, shit. Happy
Yeah.
anniversary.
Congrats 1 year of marriage, Adam.
Don't do it. Reconsider.
This guy, you're jaded. So that being said, we as we land the plane, we ask these questions to everybody we have on the show. The first question is: there's a round table, imaginary round table. There are 5 other seats. You get to have 5 guests at your table. Who do you want, dead or alive? The only stipulation is that you can't have Jesus at your table because that's too easy.
Dead or alive?
Yeah.
Oh. Colin Powell.
Okay.
Have we had him?
I think somebody said
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah.
Sam Zell. My good friend Forrest Corral.
Okay.
I have a entrepreneurial friend that is not in the real estate space, but he's probably one of the smartest guys I know, Matt Tucker. And then, God, there's so many people.
Get one more.
Yeah.
Colin Powell, Sam Zell, Matt Tucker.
Got two more.
I had another entrepreneurial friend.
Okay.
Yeah, one more.
Gary V.
That's a Gary V.
It's a good table.
I like Gary V.
Good table.
I don't know if you get a word in, but
Be okay.
yeah, I love Gary V. Love Gary. Gary, you got an open invite to the show. What's the long-term vision for you, Mike?
I think I got about 20 years left in me.
Hopefully more.
Yeah. No, I mean run.
Oh.
A good runway. Long-term vision's 100,000 units. Part of that is, one of my strategies is I coach, and I only coach 5 to 6 people at a time on a one-on-one basis. I have a group program, and but I coach 5 to 6 people at one time because I know what my schedule can bear, and I teach those people how to fish. Right, so it's easier to teach them how to fish than feed them.
Yes,
So I
sir.
want to teach people how to fish, and then let them fish, and share in that with them. So what that looks like is I teach people how to go find deals, how to underwrite deals, how to do market traps, and then they ultimately find a deal, and we wind up partnering. So that's part of the process.
So final question of the show. But before I do that, again, I want to say a big shout out to Tierra PR Network for allowing us the opportunity to record here in her beautiful, beautiful office space. Also want to give a shout out to Kylie for helping to, put all this together. So for those that are still in the audience, please. And a big shout out to the audience too. I mean, we've done it before, but we don't get a chance to do it too often. Really appreciate you guys being locked in. I mean, eyes are just like deadlocked on us, so that's really dope. Last question of the show, Mike. What advice would you be giving yourself from 5 years ago?
5 years ago?
5 years ago, 2018. I know where you are, but
Wow.
So today's version is looking back at 2018 you and telling you what?
Yeah. God, 5 years ago I was locked up.
I know. Yeah. Well, it is what it is.
And I was trying to figure out how to come home. The advice that I would give myself 5 years ago would be so I went to prison, and there were like 2 people teaching multifamily investing. There was, 2 trainers out there. And I realized probably about 2018 that I'm coming home to a very saturated market. And I don't necessarily know that I would have looked at the coaching business as I did and to come home and do that. I would have looked more at being in the business more, raising capital. I would have told myself to prepare to come home and do the business again and not deal with some of the other things I dealt with along the way.
Okay. Now, in case you didn't know, we do have a magical time machine. So we're going to fast forward the clock 5 years from now.
Yeah.
Okay. What advice would the older version of yourself be looking back at you today? What advice would he be giving you today?
Yeah, don't work so much. I work too much.
Says the guy who wants 100,000 doors.
Yeah, I know, right? There's that oxymoron again, right? Yeah, slow down a little bit, take a little time off, and that. So I get that once in a while, and it's like this event this weekend was Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And Saturday I got done and I said, you know what? I'm going to blow off tomorrow and I'm going to go spend some time with my family.
Yeah.
And that's what I got to do. So I need to do more of that. And I would tell myself that, I'm always telling myself, well, let me get this deal done. Or
You had 7 years away from him, so let's make up for some lost time.
Yeah.
Well, again, thank you for making the trip. Thank you for making the time. Thank you to Tiara Tucker, the PR Network. Thank you to Kylie Miller, the Boss Babe Network, Boss Babe Connections, all of that, all things of the above Boss Babe related. And ladies and gentlemen, we will see you guys next time. Another great episode of the Vision Lab Podcast.
Thanks, guys.
Blessings.